Okay, so we can go ahead and get started then, right? And you can hear me, right? Yep, I'm unmuted. All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to November's Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee. I'm Jonathan Forbes, chair, current chair of this committee here. I'm going to go ahead and call this to order. First thing on our agenda is any interest of items that are coming up here, and due to our format here, I just ask that perhaps you can unmute yourself and speak up if you have any interest in upcoming events. Okay, I am aware of one. Bike Walk Tampa has got a virtual forum on December 3rd. If you could look at Bike Walk Tampa Bay's webpage, you can register. This was a rescheduled event. I think it was because of Tropical Storm Ida that that is delayed it, and so it's been rescheduled for December 3rd. I think at 4 or 5 o'clock in the evening. But you can look at the webpage for more information. All right. Any other interests here that we need to address or comment on? Okay, moving on here to the next item on our agenda, we have public comment. Wade, do we have anybody in the audience that is wanted to make a comment or two?
I have not seen anybody. Sharon, have you had any requests?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so moving on here to the approval of our minutes. The minutes were attached to our agenda. I trust that everyone had the opportunity to read the minutes of our October 14th, 2020 meeting. Was there any input in the way our format is? Is there any input or corrections that need to be addressed at this time?
Yeah, please check the spelling of Becky Alfonso's last name. There's a stray L in there, which I'm sure happens to her a lot.
You have that, Sharon?
Yes, I'll correct that.
Okay. Any other suggestions?
I move we accept the minutes as amended.
All right.
And Mr. Chair, we don't have to make formal motions if you do not choose, but I guess if maybe making a motion and then asking if there are any objections to it might be a good way to handle it.
That's what I was going to do.
Thank
So
you,
are there any objections to our motion right now for the approval of the minutes as suggested with the correction to Becky's last name? Okay. Hearing none, we can go ahead and move forward here. So we'll go into our discussion items. And the first one was our Plant City Transit Plan. And is Vishaka Raman or Sarah McKinley presenting on this one? Ms. Raman, you are. I see you. Okay.
Oh, I have.
Welcome.
Good afternoon, all. Good evening.
Vishaka, you should be able to make yourself share your screen now.
Thank you. Yeah, I wasn't ready for that. So give me a minute. Let me open the presentation. Can you all see my screen now?
There we go.
Yes, it's coming up now.
Okay. Good evening. This is Vishaka Shivaraman, MPO staff for the records. I'm going to be presenting to you the Plant City Transit Study. The study was initiated back in January of 2020 at the request of Plant City and HART. We MPO are the project manager for the study, and I have with me a co-project manager from HART. Today, I will be presenting to you the highlights of the study and where we are so far. Just to give you a good background about the study, as you all know that Plant City is one of the fastest growing areas of Hillsborough County, and the map on the right is what is the study area. It includes the city. It includes part of the city and also the unincorporated county. Plant City will be projected to reach almost double the population as of 2045, as per the MPO's population growth update. The major corridors, some of the major corridors, what we identified in the study are Alexander Street, Collins Street, Reynolds Street, Baker Street, etc. Oh, did I go out of the? Okay. I just wanted to give you a study purpose, outcomes, and the goals of the study. Based on the discussion and the scope, we found out that the study tries to explore two types of transit options for Plant City. One is for a transit circulator, which operates within the downtown Plant City, and one would be an express route, a longer limited stop route to connect to Tampa and potentially to Lakeland in the future. The study will evaluate all the alternatives based on the cost, potential ridership, and the other performance measures. The study will try to identify areas to serve in the future based on the projected growth. And at the end of the study, we would recommend a set of alternatives that would be laid out to be further discussed with HART and Plant City. Moving on to the project schedule map, just wanted to bring you a tentative timeline. Like I said before, the study was started in January 2020. We had collected the data, travel market analysis, and we had done alternatives development. We had presented to the planning board and the MPO committees at 2 points, at somewhere around a midpoint. We also did focus group meetings, one at the beginning of the study, one at the midpoint, presented the alternatives, and we also had a virtual open house public meeting. And here we are in November, where we are presenting to the board and the city commissions. At the end of the study, there will be a transit study report, which includes the proposed alternatives analysis. To identify what worked and what did not work in the past, we did analyze the previous transit service that existed in Plant City. As some of you might know, there were two types of transit service that was offered in Plant City at different points of time. One was a local strawberry connector that operated from 2001 by HART, and from 2005 to 2008, Plant City took it over. The highest annual ridership was seen in 2006, around 47,000. At another time, from 2010 to 2017, there was another limited route bus called 28X, which was an East County Express. It operated from Plant City connected via Brandon to Tampa. And you can see that a small portion on towards the west side of the map. Currently, the only transit that is there is Sunshine Line. Plant City does not have any transit service, but it has a citrus connection operated on the Lakeland side, and you can see that on the map towards the right. We also looked at the commuting characteristics. We looked at the community existing conditions to understand how the people travel and where they work. It was found out that 84% of the drivers drive alone, and with a mean travel time of about 24 minutes. 18% of the residents live within 10 minutes of workplaces, and about 2% of the household do not have any car. So what it means that these people would be most in need of transit service. The map on the right shows the zero car households map, which was developed from the census data. If you notice that towards the downtown core is where the darker colors area show that there are more households with zero car. And these people are actually at a transit disadvantage, and they would be in need of transit service the most. Also, as part of the analysis, we looked at the communities of concern map. The communities of concern is developed by Hillsborough MPO, which shows people who fall into one of the categories being minority, income level, limited English proficiency, or one of those characteristics. And it was found that the communities of concern map coincide very much to the zero car household map. So it means that in essence, these people actually need transit. As I mentioned before, only the Sunshine Line operates service, and people have to be qualified to be able to ride the bus. And the origins and destinations are shown, which are mostly the shopping centers, the medical appointments, the grocery and daycare and schools. So these people do need ride to their daily activities. One of the main emphasis the study, sorry, the study focused on some public outreach, and this was one of the emphasis was given to public outreach, and I will go over in detail what we did. Initially, during February, there was a kickoff meeting with a stakeholder focus group first meeting. This meeting tried to identify the focus group and try to look at the existing conditions and the areas of future growth. The second meeting, I'm sorry, I don't know why I keep toggling between. Are you able to see my map, my presentation now?
Yeah, we can still see it.
Okay, I keep toggling between the two windows. I'm sorry. The second meeting was conducted in May 2020. Due to the COVID-19 situation, we had to move into a virtual format. And that meeting, it was also a publicly announced meeting, but we did present the alternatives to the focus group and also to the public to get their feedback. Following the meeting, we distributed a survey, and it had over 120 responses. So that helped us to refine the alternatives better. The next part of the public outreach meeting was a virtual public open house. The screenshot on the right of the page shows that this was a web page we created. It was more like a workshop where people could get people could visit each page, get the relevant information, and fill a survey to give their feedback. There was also small recorded videos. It was almost replicating a live, an actual workshop. In addition to that, there was a presentation also in August for the public. And at the end of the meeting, there were survey collected to get further feedback from the public. This brings us to the alternatives analysis section. Like I mentioned before, there were two sets of alternatives that we analyzed. One was the Circulator, and one was the bigger limited stop bus service. Based on the public feedback and also the stakeholder analysis, this was what we found out as we developed 3 transit alternative goals. The first one was to implement useful and reliable service. The second one is to incentivize downtown development. And the third is to connect to Tampa and Plant City and Lakeland in the future. Moving on to the Circulator Alternatives. The basic assumptions we used for the study was that each bus would have a 600K. It is a new bus operated by HART, and there is an additional paratransit cost of 12%. The buses operate from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. all days of the week. Please note that the costs are all planning level estimates. Any analysis further and any route planning would require in-depth analysis, and HART staff would have to develop the cost estimates based on further valuation. This is what we looked at: 2 options for the downtown Circulator. The map, which is shown with the red symbol, is one route, option A. It is operated by one bus that operates every 60 minutes. It starts at Strawberry Festival Fairgrounds to the west of the downtown, comes to the downtown, goes all the way south of it to Walmart on Redmond Parkway, takes a loop back there and comes and joins back at downtown. The second option almost splits the first option into 2, operated by 2 separate buses shown in green. One operates on the west side of the downtown and the other on the north-south of the downtown. So this is what we evaluated for the comparison. This data comes from the HART's cost estimate application, what they use. And if you notice that the option A is served by one bus, so the cost is comparatively lesser than option B, but it is also more frequent and it serves more people and more destination. It also helps to provide transit option for more people of the communities of concern who live within half mile of the boundary. In addition to that, the study team also looked at option C, which is an on-demand service, because there was some interest for this at one of the stakeholder meetings. So this is a point-to-point service, but it also, for comparison purposes, we use the size of downtown Tampa as the comparison to Plant City's operational size. So the basic statistics here are the cost of the service is approximately 1.6 million to operate 6 vehicles. There is a cost of $5 per passenger, but currently that is borne by HART because it is funded through a grant, and it serves about 14,000 passengers per month. This was at the time when the data was collected. There is also the other set of alternatives that we explored, which is the limited stop alternatives. This would also have similar assumptions as the other option, where there is a capital cost of 600K for each new bus. There would be 2 buses required to be operating, and the buses operate on Monday through Friday from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. and Saturday, Sunday from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Again, these are only planning level cost estimates and do not they are not the actual costs. This map is what I would call it as the 4 or 5 options that we used for analysis. These are all laid on the same map to show you kind of how each route operates. So the first route is the one in blue is actually the same route which used to be operated by HART back in 2010 to 17, which is the Route 28X. This does not connect to downtown Tampa, but it operates at a park and ride location to outside of the city limits, and it connects via I-4, I-75, and Selman connector to downtown. The second option is the route which operates from downtown Plant City along I-4, shown in green, and it comes to downtown Tampa. Another route, the one shown in red, operates from Tampa to Plant City via Mango. If you notice that there are some main stops and transfer connections. One is at the Net Park and one is at the Mango Walmart, and these could be used for people to connect to other destinations. In addition to that, there was a combination of the I-4 and the MLK route, which is shown in the MLK is one shown in red, and this does connect to more destinations. And I'll show you in a minute how the statistics and the cost compares for each route. In addition to that, HART currently operates Route 38, which you can see with the purple line. It connects from Net Park to Mango Walmart. So we thought that we could use that route to be extended east to Plant City. And so the Route 38 purple dotted line is only the extension route where it connects to Plant City. This is the matrix which will show you the 5 different routes side by side. If you notice that the 28X is the first one shown in the table here, which is the earlier route operated by HART. The I-4 is the other option, MLK, and the combination of I-4 plus MLK and a Route 38X. If you notice in the map, in the table, that some of these numbers are very similar to each other. The operational costs vary very similarly from 900K to almost 1.25 million. And the frequency and the distance are also shown here. However, please note that some of the routes do serve more people, but only provide lesser time. And also some of the other routes do provide service to less people, but it does help to people in poverty, minority, seniors, and the people with 0 vehicles. So we have this map, this table will help to understand a cost comparison and to see how equitable each option is, to be able to put into thought for HART and Plant City. Apart from all this, there was an additional option that we explored, because the route to Lakeland had a lot of interest in some of our stakeholder meetings. So this route, we looked at connecting via US 92 MLK to Lakeland, and with a stop at the Amazon Distribution Center in County Line Road. Note that this is just used for analysis purposes, and it is not an actual route planning again, because this would further have to be discussed by HART, and this would have to be discussed by Citrus Connection to be taken into next action steps. This is the cost comparison for the Lakeland route. It is slightly cheaper, but the distance is less, and it's only used for cost purposes. With that, I bring to the end, I'm almost at the end of the presentation. We learned some lessons from the survey that in general, there were a lot of public support for transit service in Plant City. People understood that it was, accepted that it was a good option, and which opens up opportunities for jobs, tourism and economic growth. However, providing reliable service and coverage would be a challenge. People would also have to change the public perception about transit. All the commuters drove to work, but they did see that transit would be a desirable option, but they preferred a transit plaza with facilities, and transit service needs to be operated for longer times with more frequency. The current development pattern in Plant City could support transit, but we need more development and more intensity and density to support more frequent transit service. This needs more policy decisions. For the questions for the most frequent trips within Plant City, the response was Redmond Plaza, shopping, medical appointments, and areas around the hospital. For the routes for towards Tampa, the preferred route was, the preferred destination was Tampa downtown, followed by Lakeland, followed by Tampa International Airport, Brandon, and USF area. Also, Lakeland is a desired destination that needs to have further coordination with Citrus Connection and HART. With that, I come to the end of my presentation. If you have any questions or comments, I can take that at this time.
Are there any questions? Do you have one question I was thinking about was, do you have an idea or an estimate as to what the ridership would be for both the old, to compare to the 28X route as well as the overall service?
Can you give me a minute, just a second? I'll be right back. Hello. Yes, we do have data from the previous service, and we do have the report. The final report is in a draft version, and I can provide those numbers for you. We do have cost comparison numbers and ridership data from the previous service. I did bring up, I just had the highlights in one of these slides, but
Right.
we do have year by year from HART. HART provided that data for us for the ridership.
Right, that would be the past, but you know, with the future here on this study, was there any potential estimate as to what that ridership would be, what the impact of these changes?
The only, again, I hope I'm sharing my screen here. This is the data which has the number of people served, and if you can notice here, the numbers show that these are the numbers which come directly out of the remix tool, which is what HART uses for route purposes. And this number just comes out of the census data. So what you see is if you do a route and you put a buffer for half mile around the route, this is the number of people that would be served by the transit.
Right. Right.
I have a question.
Sure, Bill.
Yes.
I don't know if anyone on this call is familiar with this, but when I organize systems like this in Arizona, usually the thing that made a difference was there needed to be like a local champion or some business leaders. There needed to be like a political will and a champion for these to get over the hump in these marginal areas. And I wondered if we had that in Plant City.
You mean anybody at the city government?
Yeah, I mean, these aren't, basically, it's kind of a political sort of thing, is the movers and shakers need to want this to happen for it to get off the ground. If nobody's really interested, it just kind of dies on the vine.
If I may, you presented to them this morning, did you not, Vishaka?
I did present to them, yes. So this study was requested by Plant City back, I believe it was sometime last year, and we took up the study early this year. But at the same time, we are the agency who is just doing the study for HART, getting the cost estimates. And of course, Plant City is our main stakeholder in the study. And I did present to the planning board this morning, and I'm going to be presenting to the city commission as well as the board. So it will be going to the heart as well as the Plant City.
Did the Plant City people express any enthusiasm for the project?
Yes, they are very involved. Of course, the data collection is done from our side, but at every stage, they are involved with the meetings, and they did have their feedback. Like I mentioned before, this study only looks at the cost estimates for comparison purposes. The actual route is something that Plant City and Hart have to talk about, if it has to be an actual implementation plan that needs further analysis by one of the two agencies.
One of the other items I think that Mr. Sapper is getting toward is, aside from Hart and the city government and Plant City, are there any third parties like the Strawberry Festival organizers that are pounding the drums to make this go forward, or a major retailer, somebody like that that's willing to get out there and help build local support, not just with Hart in the city?
We do have all of these agencies listed. We do have the hospitals, the colleges. They are all part of the stakeholder group. We do also have some business supporters and the business community who are in our group, but none of them is a champion who was really enthusiastic about carrying that study or making it as an implementation plan.
Okay.
Beth has a comment for me.
I think Beth does, yes.
If that's all right, I just wanted to jump in and offer that the mayor of Plant City actually specifically requested this study. And I know that he has a number of contacts in the business community in Plant City. And he's been reflecting that he would like to see transit service restored in Plant City, and that they're willing to explore options for funding, including the ad valorem property tax assessment. So this study is primarily to, give them some ideas of what different service types could cost, so that they can decide if they want to bring something forward for their residents' approval potentially.
Thank you, Beth.
Okay. Any other questions for the team? All right, hearing none. Thank you very much. Excited, and I think it seems like it's an exciting process here.
Thank you.
So moving. Sure.
I'm sorry, just for the record purpose, this is just an action. I mean, it's not an action item, right? It's just a.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. It was just information only in a Q&A, and we appreciate the time spent here.
Thank you all.
Right. You have a good evening. All right.
Vishaka,
moving
if you
on
could
here.
transfer the presenter back to me, please.
Yeah. Because Wade, I think you're doing the next, our 2021 meeting calendar.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
1 second. Presenter, there we go.
Did you get it? Did you get it?
Yes, thank you. I've got it.
Thank you for reminding. I'll be
Thank
here,
you.
but I'll be listening.
All right. 1 second. Are you all able to see my screen?
Yes, Wade.
Great, thank you. So let's go to the 2021 meeting calendar. We did talk about this a couple of weeks ago. You will see us in this column. We're a few days away from Valentine's Day this year. And the other one that I would point out is the MPO public hearing is going to be June 9th. That's for approving the TIP. And so the BPAC meeting would be the 19th of May, which would give us some extra time to look at that compared to how quick it's been in some of recent years. But if there are any comments on any of the dates, please note them and we'll see if we can do anything. But I have not heard anything yet.
You said that the public hearing for the MPO on the TIF is on June 9th.
Yes, sir.
And is that a voting? Is the MPO voting on that day?
That would be the date that they vote. That would be their annual evening hearing when they would vote on the TIP. So we always are trying to hear those items. And I know it's always sort of a rush between the BPAC meeting and the TIP. So we're a week earlier than we normally would have been.
Do we need to be even earlier before that public hearing?
I believe this is about as early as we can get, although they will start bringing us the FDOT work program and other things that are going to be feeding into the TIP before that, typically. So I know that you probably recall Alex Henry's presentations of the DOT work program as that's coming together.
Yeah, so so the 19th, the meeting on May 19th is probably going to be pretty involved then.
That would be what I would anticipate, just
Okay.
to keep it on your radar.
Maybe a side note that we're agenda light that night and just focused on this. Okay. Any other thoughts, anybody? Mr. Shirk, were you going to say something?
No, I was just reflecting on the changes since last year.
All righty. Okay.
Well, hearing no thanks to that, if it's all right with you, Mr. Chair, we can move on to the Vision Zero corridor studies.
Yeah, it's just going to introduce next topic items, the Vision Zero corridor studies with Wade and Ms. Silva. Welcome.
Hey, Wade.
Lisa, you are the presenter now.
Okay, and I saw it now. I didn't see it earlier. Okay. Wade, would you confirm you're seeing the title slide?
Yes.
Okay. Sometimes it flips to the other screen. Okay. Good evening. We have a very exciting project to share with you this evening. This is something that you saw the existing conditions and the outreach on in September. And we are coming back to you with the recommendations after we got all that feedback. So it's the Hillsborough County Vision Zero corridors. Some part of our implementation of the Vision Zero action plan. You won't see a lot of the education and enforcement techniques in this because it's a focus on our Paint Saves Lives tract, which are low-cost engineering strategies or quick fixes that we can implement soon to bring down fatalities and serious injuries. So how the project got going is our Hillsborough County Board of County Commissioners in one of their budget workshops said, hey, let's go to work on reducing our fatalities on the roadways and be a Vision Zero partner. So they asked for the MPO's support in working with the Hillsborough County's Department of Public Works and Infrastructure. So we co-worked on this project. You can see the list of the 8 corridors. Some things to keep in mind is this is the first time we get to apply our speed management action plan to some corridors. This is a planning study of recommendations. Some of the recommendations will require further data and evaluation to get fleshed out and finalized, and then also further refinement when we go to implement them. So as we shared with you before, the fact sheets, those little flyers with an invitation to go to the electronic survey online were distributed up and down the corridor physically, and then we blasted it out through our constant contact e-distribution list. We brought it to you during committees, and we very much appreciate your feedback and helping us get the word out throughout the community, social media and otherwise, to get the feedback in a difficult time frame because it was right in the throes of COVID, so we weren't in person. These are some of the visuals of the different fact sheets and our e-blast flyer here. Okay, so I'm gonna launch right in and give you some of the recommendations from the Bruce B. Downs Boulevard area. So the extents are from Fowler up to Bierce. This is in the university area. We have a lot of residential and intense uses going back and forth across the roadway because we have a university out there. So we have a more urban cross section to the south and a little more suburban commercial to the north. So you'll see some adjustments in our recommendations based on the context. It is an intense road. It's 6 lanes wide and 45 miles per hour with quite a few daily trips and 4 bus routes, including the University Transit Bull Runner. So we covered the crash data quite a bit the last presentation. Also note we did have nighttime crashes. We did have the different types of crashes. So our recommendations are consistent with that. And then the location of crashes are here, but I wanted to point out that I have 2 little red circles and a blue line here because these are some special projects that complement this study. They're here. They're actual capital improvements projects already in Hillsborough County's work plan. So there's a new traffic signal at Campus Hill and a new traffic signal at Richard Silver Way. And then it's pretty exciting to see that from Pine Drive to Holly Drive, there's a proposal. They're going to implement a new 10-foot sidewalk on the east side of the road and then widen the existing sidewalk on the other side of the road. And then through some restriping and lane repurposing, they're also adding a 7-foot physically buffered bike lane on both sides for that segment. So we always hear from the public and try to make our recommendations consistent with that. So the public input that we heard back on Bruce B. Downs said that driving too fast and being aggressive were some of their concerns and issues. The turning from Bruce B. Downs Boulevard to the side streets was problematic, and walking and biking across the corridor is a challenge. So those new signals and the recommendations will help that. So we have corridor-wide recommendations. These are similar throughout the 4 corridors that I'll cover, but I'll hit some of them now and then fly through it a little bit more, which you might also know we're covering these corridors very quickly. So I'll point out that the full reports were attached in your agenda packet. They're available online. If you guys want to dive into more detail, there's quite a bit in the backup, but we're just hitting a few highlights to give you a little sample tonight. So speed management techniques for the targeted speed of 35 to slow things down. So those buffer bike lanes and lane repurposing. To the north, it's a little different context. So the target speed increases to 40 miles per hour. A lot of debris and substandard curb ramps and barriers in the roadway or in the travel sidewalk. So bringing up the ADA to standard is another corridor-wide thing. Signing and pavement markings so that we can bring some more awareness and slow the turning movements down for the pedestrians out there, especially on the northern track where we have swales on both sides of the roads, and some of the sidewalks have ponding, so we have some drainage issues that we'd like to modify and change while we're out there doing the safety. And then adding the lighting and some signalization improvements, like the leading pedestrian intervals, giving those pedestrians a little bit extra time. There is some big intersections on Bruce B. Downs, like at Fletcher. So you'll see some other improvements recommended, like Fletcher with the bulb extension, checking out the possibility to do that. So, and giving the pedestrians more direction will help narrow that width that they have to cover in that big intersection. Beers, we have this free flow channelized turn, so we want to update the geometry there to help reduce that speed and give pedestrians a little more chance to get across there safely. A new pedestrian crossing added along the corridor, enhancing the crosswalks at some specific locations. And then, okay. And then, then we're coordinating here at Fowler. it overlaps with the Department of Transportation's jurisdiction. So we made recommendations and then coordinated those with their project in that location. Okay, I'm going to move on to Fletcher Avenue, and the type of crashes here that we're trying to attack are the rear end and right angle. And you'll notice that a significant portion of them are biped, so we're looking at solutions for that. And then this roadway is a little more condensed or smaller. It's like 4 lanes, but it still has that 45-mile-per-hour speed limit. It's a little longer and still has some significant volume. So that kind of gives you the sense of that segment of Fletcher. That we heard from the community, their top concerns are volume, speed, and access. Pretty succinct. And again, that's what we went to work on. So again, working on that speed, using the signal timing and phasing and the flashing yellows so that there's not permissive lefts to turn into the pedestrians. It makes the driver behave a little more, pay attention to them being present, improving this lighting, giving them back plates where they're much easier to see at the nighttime. Definitely the pavement markings and crosswalks needed to be more enhanced and upgraded. Sidewalk maintenance throughout the corridor, and we added some raised medians. So you can see just a little sample of that here. It's pretty tight, but we can put a little one in there to help, help control the access, and then like that dual left suicide lane type situation that we have along the corridor. And then here's an example of that's enhanced crosswalks, putting all the striping in, and then here we are proposing to get this turn lane better. There's been some radius reduction proposed along the corridor, so we don't have just free-flowing vehicular designed roads. Okay, and then on Lynn Turner Road, can give you a few samples here. It's more residential, so you can see here in the aerial, it's just lots of single-family homes, some green space, so it has a different feel than some of our other corridors. But at the same time, it crashes that we're trying to cure and fix here, the rear end and the right angle. It's a 2-lane road, again, a little narrower, but again, still posted speed of 45 miles per hour, less volume. So then what the community said here, high speeds, unsafe turns, and poor lighting. Those were their top concerns. So similar, but a little bit unique. And then, so similar strategies along this corridor. We have very narrow sidewalks though, so a wider sidewalk option, especially for those bicyclists that want to use the sidewalk as their way to get around instead of the on-road facilities or lack thereof. So let's see. So enhanced pedestrian crossings. Again, here's an little example, and you can see the little islands and the latest, greatest layout of those, so that they're the best practices there. And then here we have this kind of a stormwater issue here. So we propose some changes here with the turning and enhancing that intersection. So again, that's a little simple. And we're heading down the road to Sheldon. So here on Sheldon Road, you can see the locations of the crash types and time of day, etc. So a majority of these crashes on this corridor were mid-block and side street. 74% of the fatalities occurred on those side streets. So we have a little different feel here. 64 of the bike ped crashes were within legal crosswalks, which is a little disturbing to me. So this is a 2-mile segment, not about the same length as the others, but along it had 28 intersections. So not surprising that those crashes are happening at them. 24 bus stops along here, and with 28 intersections, there's only 4 marked crosswalk locations. So you'll see that we're proposing some solutions to that. Then the community input, again, speeding was ginormous. 44% of the respondents said that was the issue. Evidently, with Sheldon just being straight and without all those things to break up the travel, it is just speed, speed, speed. So you would think it also has kind of a substandard narrow bike lane, you'd think, oh, walking and biking might be feeling unsafe, but even the cars feel very unsafe. So the drivers only gave it a 3 rating. So there's work to do on Sheldon. So systematic improvements are very similar to some of the other corridors, given the high visibility crosswalks and the radii exam. This one, because that bike lane is hard to discern from the roadway, we were proposing in high conflict areas to paint it green and bring some more emphasis to it. Lighting, ADA, this one had lots of transit stops. We did learn during this presentation this morning that HART is looking at consolidating some of those and shifting them. So they're going to partner with us on the recommendations in this study. So that's new and fun. And then in the report, you can go dive into this some more yourself, but they're broken into the, our quick initial things are designed by people, the streets, and operations. So you can have like the signal stuff here, the street design stuff here, and then all the people related stuff over here. It's a fun way to break it up. Here's an example of applying the recommendations on the corridor. We have a Publix here, a 7-Eleven here, and a shopping center here. Old Memorial comes in. We have Hillsborough Avenue here. So there's this kind of very good little curve here, cruising around and lots of lanes widening out to Hillsborough. But you have a lot of people exiting and using this cut through here to get all the way over here, or just even getting over. So we're proposing this channelized median change to help calm the traffic and make them behave better there. Sheldon is different than the other corridors in that it already has a generous median, so and some mature street trees along it. We'd like to see more of that be added as appropriate up and down the corridor. That'll provide a traffic calming effect. Sheldon has the trail crossing. It's not as prevalent as I would like to think out there. So some additional signage and making sure that we're pointing that connection up to the other up at Tampa Bay Trail. So that's an enhancement that's lovely. But then safety wise, this signal when we're out in the field, we realized that it's timed like a full on traffic stop for cars, not just a pedestrian crossing. So it causes excessively long cycles. So the drivers get very impatient or tempted to just blow through there because the person has been long gone. So we're proposing to modify that and enhance that trail connection. This corridor had a school zone on it. And then when we did some digging and field review, we recognized there's actually 2 schools. So the school zone is going to be brought up to the current Florida statute standards. You'll see all of these little yellow lines up and down the corridor. Even though it's a very generous and wide median, it was designed to help the cars turn around really fast instead of like, see where we have all these 28 little crosswalks coming out. We want to give the pedestrian more refuge in here and protect them as they're crossing the street. So those are planned to be extended, and it causes the cars to behave better and slow down when they're making maneuvers on the roadway. So all in all, we got 2 new signals proposed and 3 new pedestrian crossings proposed, and then enhancements at our intersections. Like this one happens to be Waters. We have a senior zone to the east here, which is down the bottom of the slide. They are all cruising on their little scooters to get over here for coffee at Dunkin' Donuts and this grocery store for their daily needs. So there's a lot of things that need to be brought up to today's current standards in this intersection, and then improvements to like no right on red and stuff to help protect them to get across the street as they use the corridor. And now I'll turn it over to Reid for the final 4 corridors. Go. Do I have to stop sharing? You took it.
All right. Hello, everybody. So I will be going through the next 4 corridors, starting with 78th Street here, which this segment, which is south of Palm River Road, is 4 lanes with a center turn lane. you can see here one of these mid-block crossings and pedestrian refuge islands are a key part of the countermeasures proposed here, as well as reducing the speed, lighting, and a couple of other alternatives. Excuse me, let me see if I can make this advance. There we go. So just starting with Palm River Road, the infrastructure at that location is about a third of all of the crashes on this corridor. So some intersection geometry improvements, as well as lighting and extending the curb radii where possible at a couple of these locations are part of the recommendations here. Along the whole corridor, we have proposed a total of 3 additional mid-block crossings similar to the one you see above, in addition to the one that is currently there near the school at the north end of the corridor. So reducing the speed limit from 45 to 35, accomplishing that in part through reducing the width of the travel lanes, and installation of raised islands in the median where possible. There are a number of cross streets on both sides here, and so there are a number of dangerous turn movements that may exist, may continue to exist, but can be made safer, particularly with a lowered speed. In the mid-turn, reconstructing and widening the sidewalks. These are pretty wide sidewalks, but for the most part have power line poles on both sides of the road here, and enhancing the street lighting throughout the corridor. Just a couple of examples of mid-block crossings and islands, separator islands in similar situations here. Moving on to Gibson Drive and Boya Road. Gibson Drive turns into Boya Road just east of 301. This is a 4 and 6 lane roadway, currently 45 miles per hour. The goal is to reduce that to 40, narrow the travel, partly through narrowing the travel lanes, but also filling in sidewalk gaps while we're doing that, providing crosswalks at all of the existing signals. And then there are a couple of existing projects that are getting ready to move forward at the I-75 overpass, which I'll get into in a moment. But as you see in the picture on the right, restricting some of these median openings to left turns, which are a big problem, and trying to address those crash types in several locations along Gibson Drive here. So the existing cross section, you can see about a 5-foot sidewalk on both sides, 12-foot travel lanes. So on the lower one, reducing those to 11, increasing the width of the sidewalk, and trying to eventually put in a shared use path on the south side of the road that would still accommodate the eventual widening of the segments of it. So this is at US 301. The eastern approach to this intersection, as well as the radii extensions shown there in red, but we would be adding a southbound left turn lane here, and just through reorienting some space to avoid some of the congestion that is causing some of the backups and dangerous behavior that's leading to crashes, as well as shortening the distance for crossing for pedestrians and proposing some refuge islands in the middle as you cross Gibson Drive. So this is that proposed section where it expands to 6 lanes. And that could even work where the current 4-lane section is now. It is proposed to be expanded. So putting in, or at least leaving the room to do that, and still having enhanced bicycle and pedestrian facilities through a shared use path is one of the options here. So just to focus in on the I-75 interchange here, and every time I've been out there, I have seen people walking or riding their bikes across this overpass, across I-75. And even if you look on the Google Street View going across, you can see multiple people walking across and trying to get across the slip ramps. So part of the countermeasures as a result of the existing condition and the planned projects are to look at the pedestrian crossings at the interchange and the signalization of those ramps as people get on and off the interstate, as well as enhancing the lighting over there. So moving on to Mango Road, this is between north of Martin Luther King all the way up to I-4. These are some of the existing conditions. You can see the road shoulder has been eroded. We also have some areas where there are sidewalk gaps or the sidewalk is in need of maintenance, and some stormwater facilities that may be contributing to that. Looking at some of the existing program projects for that, this is a roundabout proposed at Old Hillsborough Avenue. The only addition that I believe we've added as a recommendation to that is adding speed feedback signs at the approach to that due to the grade change. It is kind of a good hill out there. Looking just a little further down at corridor improvements, looking at updating the pavement markings and the drainage improvements, lighting and pedestrian improvements, and several intersection improvements, which I'm coming to. First, the sidewalk gaps. These are the two main gaps, and the one on the south marked as 1 here goes from the Walmart directly to that mango park. And you can see the trail that has been worn there. It's obviously a well-traveled path and would be a short segment that would really be, I think, a great use to people. And then obviously the one to the north of Clay Pit Road as well. Looking at these several intersections, some of the recommendations are pretty similar. So just as an example, looking at Clay Pit, adding signal backplates and leading pedestrian intervals on the actual signals, repainting the crosswalks, adding sidewalks and connections where they don't exist, and curb and gutter on the approaches to that where there are erosion issues. Another intersection improvement, left turn lanes where the width allows for it. That'll help avoid some of those rear end crashes and give people time to wait while not backing up traffic for some of the and avoid some of the angle crashes. Looking all the way to the south, there are 2 entrances to that Walmart that I mentioned earlier. One, the southernmost driveway, we have proposed to install a median separate, or a concrete median there where it's marked 1. You can see just to the right of that one, the tire tracks that are worn in there. That's a pretty bad crash spot as people are coming north from Martin Luther King. They're trying to merge from the 2 lanes into 1, as you can see at the bottom. They're making left turns into the road at the bottom left of that picture. And then you add to that the full driveway movement. It's a pretty tough spot. So then the driveway immediately north of that, you would still be able to make a left turn in and out, but it's far enough away from the intersection where you would avoid a number of those conflicts, and adding those turn lanes, again, to allow a safer way to make that turn. Moving into 15th Street, and I think this is a good one to end on. You all are, I'm sure, have been to 15th Street near the university between Fowler and Fletcher. A lot of activity, a lot of multifamily residential. These are some of the existing conditions. We have some issues with the shoulders, some sidewalk gaps, and some sidewalks in need of repair. But the county is currently under construction on this project to fill in a number of sidewalk gaps, add mid-block crossings, raised mid-block crossings, and providing some improved access to those transit stops, which are actually pretty nice facilities out there. These are just a couple of more examples of some of the improvements going on out there right now. You can see that the transit shelters and the crosswalks are aligned. And they've also, I was really impressed looking at those raised crosswalks with the drainage considerations that they put into them when I was out there recently. Just a couple of options that, that could be looked at further out into the future on 15th Street. Wider sidewalks with shared lane markings. The volumes on this may be a little too high to support shared lane markings. We're still looking at that. And then another option, which would be looking at adding buffered bike lanes with still slightly enhanced sidewalks and pedestrian facilities. So with that in mind, I do want to acknowledge Mr. Rank's comments. We are going through comments from both Public Works and from the Hillsborough County Infrastructure Planning Department, as well as incorporating any comments from all of the MPO committees. And we will be doing that over the next couple of weeks before the board meeting. So with that, if there are any questions or comments, thank you all for your time, and we appreciate it.
All right, thank you, Wade and Lisa. I am buffering really bad right now. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Although not now, if you're still talking.
Okay, Wade, I think I'm just going to call in on the phone here. Okay, I see that. Thanks, Wanda. I think our just internet's getting throttled at this time. So while you have me here, I just wanted, there's a chat. Are those recorded as well? The chat, because Richard had a comment.
Yes, that chat is recorded, and that's part of why I was trying to address it to make sure we got that in the record. Mr. Rank's group has provided a number of comments that we're working through, specifically with regard to being consistent with the technical manual as it is updated. And that's certainly the intention, is to be consistent with those documents.
Okay, I did have a question, if perhaps you guys can explain. There are two sections. I think one of them was the Bruce B. Downs section with the section north of Fletcher. And I think the other one may have been Gibson Drive, where the speed limits were going to remain at 40 or above. Is there any thought as to why they're going to be in the 40s versus just maintaining a 35 to be consistent with the other recommendations?
35 would certainly be a safer speed in many locations. I can, on the Bruce B. Downs section, I'll let Lisa speak to that. On Gibsonton Road, I think we did not try for a lower speed because we're not looking at any on-street facilities. But certainly that's a great comment, and we can see if it's a great recommendation, and I'm happy for you to have made it.
And I'm sorry, I was reading Richard Rank's comments, and I heard they were asking about Gibsonton Drive. So would you tell me again what you're asking on the Bruce B. Downs?
Yes, Bruce B. Downs, why is the speed limit, why is the target speed 40 instead of a lower speed?
Okay, again, we worked with our partners on that, and that's what Hillsborough County identified as more appropriate up there, given the context and the design of the road. They have some resurfacing ideas, and the transition to the northern part of Bierce, that's the lowest speed they wanted to design to.
And on Gibsonton, as you mentioned, it is a target speed of 40 miles an hour, and there are on-street facilities actually east of US 301. So I understand that that's certainly a high speed for some of those existing facilities as well.
And then I will point out again on Bruce B. Downs that 40 is below what's there now, 45. So it does give us a little bit more wiggle room. Plus, all these recommendations, we can't just go out and say, oh, we're going to target 35 as a target speed. We have to have the improvements along the roadway to justify and support that. Our partners were very clear about that. So there's this less we can accomplish with the design of the roadway up there, as well as, you know, that was what was workable. And it's also a transition area from a 6-lane to an 8-lane road, which is another reason why 35 just didn't seem to fit that segment.
And I may have misspoken. Gibsonton, the proposal is lowering from 45 to 40. I'm not sure if I said something different.
Okay, I may be back.
All right. You are?
All right then. Okay. All right. Were there any other questions for Wade or Lisa on this? Because I believe this was an action item, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So being that we're in
Jonathan, I think we may have lost you again.
this virtual, I
There you
guess
are.
we just need to register any objections to the recommendation.
Yeah, yes, sir. Mr. Forbes, are you still there?
No, I think I hear you guys again here. Can you hear me? I'm sorry about this, guys.
Yes, sir. We can hear you again.
Okay. So there's a comment here. It's premature to approve the recommendations.
Oh, in the chat.
So I guess we do have our, go ahead.
There's a comment in the chat that it's premature to support this. Is that what?
Yes.
Wade, are you seeing that?
I am, yes.
Okay.
All right, so since we have an objection, that objection is noted. And I think that's about as far as we can go with this. Is that right in this environment?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
But we will note that in and any other comments from any other committees, as well as we try to address the comments from Hillsborough Planning and Public Works as we go to the board next month. So thank you all again.
Okay. All righty. I'm going to because I think then that's what we're dealing with is just we have an objection to the recommendations for the planning, and I think that's as far as it will just be noted here in our group here.
Yes, sir. I think that's the best way to handle it for the time.
And I will offer
and
that.
I apologize over our connections here. I'm going to just try.
I will offer in response
I'm
to
sorry,
that,
Lisa, go ahead.
that it may take some time to work through. We did get the review comments a little late. The Hillsborough County Public Works and Planning and Infrastructure had a hurricane to contend with. So if we need to take another month or so before we hit the board's agenda, we will take the time necessary to get the recommendations correct for our partner in this project.
Okay. I'm going to try this again, guys, but I think the next agenda item was we wanted.
Yes, sir. The next one is the MPO Planning Commission Non-Discrimination Plan, and that is Joshua Barber.
Are we all ready, y'all think? All right,
Go ahead.
I'll dive in. So good evening, everybody. Josh Barber, MPO staff for the record. I'm here to provide an update on our Title VI and non-discrimination plan update. So I want to provide a little bit of a project background before we dive into the 2021 update. The MPO is required by federal law to regularly update our non-discrimination and Title VI program, and every 3 years is considered best practice. Our last plan was updated in 2018, and at that time, we covered the following areas. So that included, if you look at the 2018 plan, identifying our underserved communities and where they're located based on demographics, how we engage those communities in our work, what our planning processes are, how we provide access for persons with limited English proficiency, persons with disabilities. We also looked at how we evaluate the equity outcomes of our plans, whether that's through Tampa Bay Regional Planning Model or other GIS processes. We looked at how we integrated Title VI into our primary program areas. So, how did we incorporate communities of concern into Vision Zero? How did we target public involvement? How did we prioritize our projects? Topics such as that. And also covered in the non-discrimination plan, which is required by federal law, was our Title VI complaint process, our forms, our procedures, and the staff liaison responsible for coordinating those efforts. And the plan concluded with a set of recommendations, for advancing equity within all of our program areas. So as part of this year's update, we made the decision to expand the plan to include the work of the Planning Commission as well. This is a pretty big endeavor. It's not anything we've ever done before, and there aren't really many nationwide examples of something like this. But staff and leadership feel it's an important step towards advancing equity throughout our county in a coordinated and intentional manner. So just want to back up a little bit further and kind of review and highlight our obligations to do this work as promulgated through federal law and regulations and executive orders. So the non-discrimination program really comes out of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which was the first major piece of civil rights legislation in the country. Title VI of that act states that no person shall, on the grounds of race, color, or national origin, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or otherwise be subjected to discrimination under any program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. This language was really the model that was used for other civil rights legislation that came after, such as the Rehabilitation Act in 1973, or the Age Discrimination Act in 1975, or the ADA in 1990. And there's other pieces of federal regulation and executive orders that also provide protection and direct us as an MPO to review how our planning processes and investments impact minorities, low-income persons, how we provide access to persons with limited English proficiency, and taken together, all of this kind of leads to a broad non-discrimination program that this plan covers. So these pieces of civil rights legislation, starting with the Civil Rights Act of '64, were essential in preventing the continued and explicit discrimination by government entities and private entities of racial and ethnic minorities and others. So prior to this and the other legislation, policies such as those expressed in the map on the left were relatively commonplace. Discrimination was explicit. The map shows the now infamous homeowners loan corporation maps, otherwise called redlining maps at times. And these graded neighborhoods on their desirability for mortgage lending. The red neighborhoods, which were deemed the most hazardous for mortgage lending by the Homeowners Loan Corporation, which was a division of the federal government at the time, are almost always cited as having a large population of non-white racial and ethnic groups. And while we've made great strides as a country in ending this sort of explicit and institutionalized discrimination by our government entities, the legacy of these policies are still very much with us and apparent. The map to the right shows concentrations of persons of a racial minority in Hillsborough County. And to the right of that, you can see a dot density map of low-income households. And really, I want to point out the parallels between where we have large concentrations of racial minorities and concentrations of low-income households, and how that relates back to, say, this 1940s Homeowners Loan Corporation map. And similarly, not only where low-income households are located, but where they're not located, and similarly for racial and ethnic minorities. And these legacies continue to be apparent in many ways across the county, other than just the neighborhood demographic makeup. So, we can see these disparities exist in terms of homeownership and air quality and transportation safety and neighborhood safety across our community. For example, the Health Atlas map here on the right shows the incidence of asthma across Hillsborough County. And you can see that neighborhoods such as East Tampa and West Tampa have a high incidence compared to the rest of the county, and then sprawling up towards the university area. And these align really well with our low-income neighborhoods. And this is really only a snapshot of a few measures for a few groups. Similar disparities can be found along other lines of diversity and in other measures. And these trends really show that non-discrimination is an important step in ensuring equity, but we really have to take a proactive approach to advance equitable outcomes as an agency in all of our work, and work towards reversing the legacy of historical policies and discrimination. So with all that and all that background, I'm going to dive into our 2021 plan update now specifically. So MPO and Planning Commission staff have been hard at work to this end on identifying some major project goals. Of course, we want to continue to meet federal and state requirements for Title VI environmental justice. But in addition to that, we really want to look towards how we can institutionalize equity throughout all of our agencies, the MPO, the Planning Commission, and the River Board. And this can be done through improving our data tracking and performance measurement of our equity conditions and our outcomes, our community engagement processes, as well as improving our community representation throughout the agency. So how are our boards composed and who is on them? And so we've also developed a scope of our work, just to kind of give you all an overview of what you can expect to come out of this. I hear someone talking. So to help us meet these goals, we've outlined this scope of work, and I'm going to kind of go through some of these major tasks that we're working on currently. So our first major task is defining equity. We felt this was an important first step for us as an agency to determine, what is equity and what makes for an equitable process. So the major components that are identified here were taken from a researcher by the name of Seth Lowe. And the first one is, of course, distribution. So how are the benefits and burdens of our plans and projects distributed across our county? This is often the component of equity that most people think of when they think of equity. But in our research, we found that equity really goes beyond just the distribution of benefits and burdens. It includes the recognition of historical and current inequity systems and systems that uphold those inequities. It includes interaction, how we interact with people, what our relationships look like, as well as the idea of care and repair. So that's the maintenance and upkeep of our public spaces. How do we prioritize something in the MPO's work, for example, or in transportation planning more broadly? You know, how often are certain neighborhoods having roadway resurfacing or improvements in their sidewalk conditions? Really taking the time to upkeep our public spaces and ensure that everyone is getting access to public goods. And then, of course, there's procedure, how decisions are made, who makes them, and who is involved. And this kind of covers all of the bases of equity, right? And that's not to say that distribution isn't an essential component, and even has its own questions within it, such as should all persons receive equal amounts of benefits and burdens of our investments in transportation, or should some neighborhoods receive more than others on the basis of existing inequity? So our next major task is looking at the history of planning in Hillsborough County and how that planning processes may have led to inequitable outcomes today. So this includes looking at early public housing, which was historically segregated across the nation and is no different here, as well as the first zoning codes in the county. You know, what neighborhoods were zoned what, and what was the decision making behind that. Looking at the Homeowners Loan Corporation maps and urban renewal projects, where were those funds invested? What neighborhoods were impacted by that? And looking at highway construction, and there's a long list. This is just kind of a general overview, but there's a lot of areas to look at through this process. And we really think this is essential for understanding the context of our county and understanding how we got to where we are today, so we can begin to address some of these problems that we face. The next major task is doing community mapping. So for this update, we're revising our methodology from the 2018 plan and adding a new one. So the map to the left is a threshold-based map. It shows concentrations, in this case, of African American or Black populations, residents of the county. And these are the highest percentile, so the 80th to 100th percentile by percentage of the block group, as well as the 60th to 80th in a slightly less dark shade. And then in addition to this threshold-based methodology that helps us identify concentrations, we are doing dot density maps. So the one on the right shows dot density by racial and ethnic groups, where blue is white, this green yellow is Black, red is Asian, orange is Hispanic, and then brown is Native American, Native Indian, Hawaiian, Pacific Islander, some other race. And taken together, these, you know, each methodology kind of has its shortcoming, but taken together, they provide a comprehensive overview of the demographic breakdowns across the county. So our next major task is looking at an evaluation of our existing work. So how are we incorporating equity and prioritizing projects, conducting public engagement in all of our program areas? So that's the comprehensive plan, special area studies for the Planning Commission. For the MPO, that's the LRTP, our TIP, complete streets, resiliency, public engagement, and our other program areas. I'm just trying to take an inventory of what we've been doing so far and where the shortcomings may be, so we can inform our recommendations in the future. Our next major task is public engagement. We've updated our website to have the Title VI and non-discrimination plan as a drop-down under the plans tab, having equity as one of the interests, and under About Us, providing more easy access to our Title VI complaint processes and procedures and other information. The major task with our public engagement is helping to build community leadership on advancing more equitable outcomes in the county. We didn't do a public engagement component for the 2018 plan, so we thought it was really important for the 2021 plan. The two major things that we're trying to do is a survey distribution, which will be very short, trying to gather general sentiments on community access to community services, transportation, parks and recreation, and other areas across the county. And then we'll use that to kind of break it out and see if different demographics experience access differently. And then we're also hoping to use that to build into some demographic-based focus groups to dive deeper into some of the issues that different people face. So we're looking to do one with racial minority groups, ethnic minority groups, low-income persons, people with disabilities, and then also the LGBTQ population. And so if you're interested in signing up to receive more information about that, we have a little sign-up link here. And if you or anyone you know are interested in participating in one of these focus groups, please feel free to have them reach out to us as well. And here's a timeline of when to expect everything coming forward. We'll be doing this defining equity, this history report, our mapping, and the evaluation of our existing work through early next year, with the goal of doing community engagement, specifically the focus groups in February and March or so, doing recommendations through the spring and into the summer, and then hoping for plan adoption sometime around August 2021. This is being done primarily by staff in-house, but we are consulting and have assistance from Charles Brown from Rutgers University. He is an expert on transportation and equity, and then as well as Danielle Jackson, who is the founder of TEL Public Relations, which is a local PR firm, to help us with our public engagement process. And with that, that's the end of my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions that you all may have.
And Mr. Shirk, if Mr. Forbes is unable to get back on, I see that he's on, but I just don't think he can speak. If you wouldn't mind taking over if he's unable to.
Not at all. I just unmuted myself. Just rare for me to be unmuted. Actually, rare for me to be muted. Thank you very much, Mr. Barber, and also thanks to Dana Lazarus for her input. I personally look forward to getting involved with the issues of environmental justice, because if you look at the incidence of asthma, it tracks right along the I-4, I-275 corridors and right through areas of high minority population. So that's an area that needs to be really addressed with some vigor, because it's been studiously ignored by pretty much everybody involved. So thank you very much. And I don't have the, please turn it back to, so we can take a look at the agenda, because all I see is the end of your section there, Mr. Barber.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Jim, it's Jonathan. I think I'm back.
Oh, good. Then I'm muting myself.
I was listening in on, yeah, you can mute yourself. Thank you. Yeah, I was able to listen to the last part with Mr. Barber. Thank you very much. Any other questions at all outside of the comments so far? All right, hearing none. All right, next item here is a presentation by Becky Alfonso of the Florida Bicycle Association. So Becky, turn it over to you, and I think you have a presentation.
Yes, I do. Thank you very much. And good evening, everyone. I appreciate this opportunity and want to thank Jim for noticing the correct spelling of my last name. We are Portuguese, not Italian. Little joke there is we always tell people to get the L out of there. So thank you for that. Tonight, I'm going to present where the Florida Bicycle Association is with regards to a legislative platform for 2021. And I always like to start with this particular slide just because I'm a huge fan of Schoolhouse Rock. And our friend, Mr. Bill there is absolutely right. Everybody makes it sound easier than it really is. So just a little bit of a background. In 2018, we asked legislators to expand the current move over law to include people. So if you look up that statute, you'll see that that move over law only pertains to moving over for vehicles, emergency vehicles, utility vehicles, service vehicles. Doesn't say anything about moving over for people. So in 2018, we had this idea that we would actually create some type of a bill to include vulnerable road users into the current move over law. Turns out there were some issues with the vulnerable road user statute definition because it does carry a few definitions for animals that may be in the road, skateboarders that may be in the road. It was maybe a little too broad for what the legislators were comfortable with. So what turned to that was a workshop that was held by the first House committee the bill was going in front of. And it was from that workshop that the bill sponsor created a strike all amendment. And to replace the amendment was what was considered a bicycle and pedestrian safety bill. This was heard in front of two House committees and passed, got all the way to the House floor. But if your companion bill on the Senate side doesn't go along with your bill in the House, it tends to die in committee, and that is exactly what happened on the Senate side. The bill died in committee, never was heard to even create the strike all amendment to create the bicycle and pedestrian safety bill. But we do know that this had legs because it was heard in front of House committees and it passed. So we actually asked, we didn't do anything with it the following year. You'd like to give that a little bit of a rest, regroup, if you will. This past session, we had it in draft language with potential bill sponsors, and it could have been an election year decision, but it wasn't actually filed as a bill. But we know who had it in draft language, and I'm happy to say they won their election, so we will be knocking on their door. And with that, what we're going to do is go back to this Move Over for People initiative and see how that 13-page bicycle safety bill can be made into a law. So not going to get into the 13 pages, especially the way that it's written for legislative language. So we're going to do some of the highlights. And the first highlight is, of course, that we're going to include this Move Over for People component. What we had found, and we had taken statistics through law enforcement officers with regards to what is enforceable, and the 3-foot passing law is not enforceable. Move over is enforceable. It's a direct action that the public actually understands. And it's easy for law enforcement to see whether or not a vehicle moved over, as opposed to trying to judge if there's 3 feet between a cyclist and the motor vehicle. So we know that this actually benefits law enforcement because it is viewed as an enforceable bill, and so that actually lends itself to their protection as well, because it's now saying we're moving over for pedestrians, which would include first responders. Another highlight from the bill, and this has come up to the association in the past, is the allowing of motorists to cross a double yellow line to pass a cyclist. So that's the language in there on that slide that you can see, and I believe we can make this PowerPoint available afterward. So in essence, that's what we're looking for, is allowing a motor vehicle to cross a double yellow line to pass a cyclist. Seems like a no-brainer, but it's actually in law that doesn't specify to pass a cyclist. It actually just says you may cross a double line for an obstruction. So whatever that wiggle room is, this particular language will be clear that this allows for crossing the double yellow line to avoid hitting a cyclist. Another highlight for this particular bill is allowing groups of cyclists to go through a stop as a group. Now, this is not to be confused with what some cyclists know as the Idaho Stock Law. That is different. This is actually just saying that groups of cyclists, 10 or fewer, can go through that stop sign as a group. I bring up this point because Idaho Stop, when discussed in front of legislature, does not get a lot of traction. There's not a lot of interest in legislators to allow for a law when cyclists are currently breaking a law. However, they did see the importance of allowing groups through a stop sign, so this is in that bill. And again, it was found favorable in 2 House committees, so we're pretty confident we can keep this language. And then this fourth highlight is educational awareness. This is the exact language that needs to be in the bill to allow for the Department of Motor Vehicles to actually advertise that this is the law. And it may not seem like a big deal, except that I can tell you the 3-foot passing law did not have this language in its bill draft language, and therefore was not advertised like something as a move over law. If you travel the interstate, you'll see some signs that say move over for emergency vehicles, because the educational awareness language was in the bill. So we want to make sure that if this does become a law, that it is known throughout the state of Florida that you will now move over for bicyclists and pedestrians. So that's the essence of this particular platform initiative. We're actually kind of focusing on just this one for the 2021 session. And I throw the slide out there to stay engaged. If you haven't already made contact with your state legislator, I suggest you do so. Off session is a great time to contact them so that they can actually get to know you. And then during session, if you need to contact them, they may actually answer because they know you. You want to build a relationship? I would start with just congratulating them on winning the election and take it from there. We've learned that if you use 2 words in the subject line, thank you, those are the ones that tend to get read more than other emails that are generally worded a little differently. So that's my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions this evening, or you can always contact me or look at our website. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Becky. Jonathan, are you there?
I am trying. I am
There you
my
go.
best here to get this working here. Any questions for Becky?
I did want to note one thing, if I may, Mr. Chair, and
Sure.
that is in the committee reports going to the that went to the board. We did note that the committee was supportive of the and suggested the Florida Bicycle Association legislative priorities to be considered at last month's meeting. So it's great that Becky was able to make it here this month and give us an update.
Thank you. And thank you again, Becky, for your time.
My pleasure. I know it's not necessarily dinner conversation, but again, if something comes to mind down the road, just check our website or send me an email. Thank you.
Alrighty. All right, so moving on here, any old or new business at this time for consideration? All right, hearing none. I'm still getting some problems here. Wade, are you okay hearing me?
Oh, we can hear you. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Again, I apologize. So with that, I think we can, if there's no other old business or new business to discuss, we can go ahead and adjourn. If
Hey,
that's
Jonathan.
okay. Yes, sir.
Hey, I just wanted to say congratulations to Wade.
Oh, thank you. Actually, I can show you all something.
Yeah, I think it is time to share something, Wade.
Oh, well, yes, I was just going to show you all a picture. Anyway, that's my son Wyatt. He was born on Friday, the 13th, in fact.
Mother and baby doing well?
And
he's doing great. As is he.
All right. Well, This is a wonderful thing to end our discussion on. I look forward to talking and perhaps seeing everyone on next month's meeting. And with that, we can go ahead and adjourn.
Wade, what's his name?
Wyatt.
After his grandfather.
Well, his
Or
mother's
his
maiden name.
last name, right? Family name.
Cool.
Cool. Congratulations.
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 Thanks, everyone. Good
Too
night.
bad we're not there. We could get bubblegum cigars or something. Pass out cigars. Okay, good night.
Maybe next month. Maybe
Okay.
next month we can do
Right,
this.
I wouldn't count on it. Bye.
All right, everyone. Okay, take care, everyone. We'll talk to you later.